Hello to everybody listening. My name is Setu Kumani, and I'm the head of communications at WeThinkCode. And I'm really excited to be hosting this discussion today with some of my colleagues from WeThinkCode, as well as industry colleagues from system verification. We're going to have an interesting discussion following the pilot project that System Verification and WeThinkCode had launched at the end of last year. Some of you may or may not know WeThinkCode is a tech training academy in South Africa that teaches youth from underserved communities how to code. We take them from not knowing about coding to then being able to be work-ready software developers and then place them into workplaces. We've partnered with System Verification, which is a Swedish company, a global software quality assurance company that specializes in this area. And last year, this partnership brought about a very unique pilot where now WeThinkCode students who would have normally graduated with a generalist software developer qualification can now do an elective called Automation QA. And today we're having that discussion with the team to actually understand more about QA broadly, its significance within the industry, within South Africa's context, and also obviously the viability of it being a specialized career path for budding software developers. So enough from me. I'd like to go around and get introductions from our guest. Over to you, Adha.
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is Adha and I'm industrial PhD student at System Verification and Lund University in Sweden. But I also have 2 years of experience working as a test automation engineer.
My name is Harun Madar and I'm a software quality assurance consultant in system verification. So I started my journey back in the day in 2013 as a quality assurance tester, but only manual testing. And with time, I got a chance to do some test automation and expand my QA knowledge. So the last 3 years, I'm working for system verification. And in this time, I had a chance to really perform more advanced quality assurance, like setting up test automation frameworks and performing some test management.
Great. And on the WeThinkCode side, Aslam?
Hello, everyone. I'm Aslam Khan. I'm part of the WeThinkCode team in a few capacities. I sit on the board of WeThinkCode. I'm also responsible for putting together the curriculum for WeThinkCode with a team of a few other people. I've been a friend of system verification for a few years now. And so when we started thinking about a test automation and quality assurance module, it was an obvious choice to reach out to our friends from across the other side of the world. So that's from my side. Looking forward to the conversation.
Hi there, my name is Abdurrahim D. I am an alumni of WeThinkCode, and I'm currently working for WeThinkCode as a performance administrator, basically in charge of handing the curriculum out to the students and making sure that they're following everything accordingly, and then also just making sure that everything that they've completed all their coursework, and just making sure that the reports get handed to them at the end, and making sure that they complete all their work.
Awesome. So thank you once again all for making the time to have this discussion and to share your insights. So we'll jump right into it. Can you please explain for those of us who don't have all the technical jargon and background, what exactly is quality assurance and contextualize its role within software development?
So I think that I will reflect on both quality assurance and software testing because they are usually used interchangeably. So quality assurance ensures that appropriate processes and procedures are in place that enable delivery of a product or service to an agreed level of quality. And it is much wider topic than testing because it covers more than just the outputs of software delivery. It also covers the inputs of how the software product is being developed in order to improve the likelihood of a positive outcome. So it is quality assurance is a process that goes in the parallel with the software development, and this means that software development teams and the quality assurance team don't work isolated. So the idea is that they work together from the beginning of the project, so including also stakeholders, business analysts, requirement engineers, developers, and testers. And quality assurance process helps to improve the productivity of the project team by specifying and establishing the requirements for both software development process and quality standards. When it comes to the testing, testing involves validating the product against specifications and customer requirements, finding and reporting defects. It includes various testing techniques such as functional, non-functional acceptance testing to detect software issues. And beside that, the goal of software testing is also to make sure that detected defects are fully fixed without any side effects before the product is released to the customer. And this QA elective actually covers this functional testing on unit integration and system level. And so what is important to maybe to remember from all of this is that quality assurance helps us to bring the value to the software products that is being developed, and it should be included from the very beginning of the development phase.
That's actually very interesting because in my mind, they are interchangeable terms, but your explanation clarified things that I didn't realize it was a start to finish process, the quality assurance. And then the testing is obviously then the final checkpoint before it goes out. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, quality assurance is much about the process. So how the teams work together, how they cooperate together, how they make sure that in every iteration, so after each feature, after each release, they are making sure that they deliver a quality product to the customer.
Okay. And in working alongside software developers, what are kind of the, I guess, nuances between those different roles? Because obviously they have probably similar foundational skills, but to be working alongside the main software developers who are developing the product versus the person who's doing the quality assurance, are there huge differences in, I guess, the technical participation, if I can say that?
Well, I guess you're asking about the positions like development and test automation. So the person who is developing the code for the tests. So in general, so both is programming. So it does require to have programming skills, but it is a bit different. You're looking to software from different perspectives. And when developers are developing their own product, they might think, oh, this is very good, and which is some kind of biased. But then we have someone else from the outside that will come and actually write the code for the testing of that software and then actually assess its real value.
Okay, so they would bring in the unbiased perspective to say whether or not it's good or bad in terms of the product.
The mindset in itself is different. That is probably the most important difference here, because the software developer is really looking to build something new and to set it up to work ideally. And the QA is looking, okay, how can I break this? What can I do to complicate stuff to see if this application will really handle it? And on this basis, the whole solutions they come up with and the ways of thinking is completely different.
Wow, that's actually very interesting. I never thought about it that way. But I guess in the creation process, it is helpful to get an additional pair of eyes to be able to actually objectively say whether or not what you're producing is of good quality. So in terms of automation QA in South Africa and the expertise and experience that we may or may not have in the space. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about our process of our journey to this point in the South African context, Aslam.
We've always had a need for software quality assurance. It's always been there. I've been in the industry here for just over 30 years, and I can't remember any project or organization that I've interacted with that didn't have the need for software quality assurance. The nature of it has changed over the decades, as Ada and Harun have been explaining. It's now a lot more collaborative and things like that. In the past, it was very much siloed. It was the afterthought. It was like the last thing that you would do to prove that it worked. And then, and there was this love-hate relationship often between quality assurance and software developers, because developers always point at the quality assurance people and say, "Oh, you are wrong. Our software works," and quality assurance will say that, "Oh, your software is broken." And so there was this unhealthy biases that were created to say, quality assurance is often considered second class. And so it never got the prominence that it held or it deserved in the industry, locally and internationally. And, I think System Verification is one of the organizations that actually balances that out, and has proven that it is a first class consideration in any project. So in South Africa, it's been there. In my opinion, I don't think we've been very good at it, across the board, because of the nature of the way it has been positioned. Right? But more recently, at WeThinkCode, we believe in practitioners. We are training people to be practitioners. We want them to be relevant in the industry, in the workplaces in which we place them. And so the demand actually came from industry, where quite a few of the partners, the workplace partners, were talking to us on the curriculum side and says, what about this thing of quality assurance? And not specifically just it in general, but test automation as a part of quality assurance. And to put it in perspective, maybe Ada and Harun as experts will be explain it better using better language, but it is being able to run your test in an automatic way. What parts of the software can we automate? So software that gets built to test your software, as opposed to human beings sitting there and, clicking through an app and seeing if that works. So that was an ask from industry. So it's a sign that there's a need. It's a sign that the industry is ready to mature to that level. Even within the South African context, like the rest of the world, we track in the same way. There's a lot more software being produced. It's not slowing down. The more software we produce, the more there's a need to make sure it works in the right way. If we think of our own casual experiences with software, we all know those moments where we, cuss under our breath about this app just didn't work, or it crashed, or that payment on that bank is hanging, and we all know that, right? Even if it's Candy Crush or banking, we all know that moment where we click submit and it's just hanging and it's taking long. And our job is to produce professionals that eliminate that kind of frustration for people that are using the software that's being produced. So it's never been absent. It's always been present. It needed the elevation it deserves, right? And we're seeing the industry asking for that. And this was our response to that. So I don't think it's going to get less, because the volumes of software is just going to keep on increasing. So from that point of view, this was a perfect way to get system verification. We've been instrumental in making quality assurance a first-class concern in any organization, in their clients, and we're doing it here now. And so I think we're at this wonderful moment. It's a good moment to be in.
Yeah, you mentioned some really interesting things there, and I think two things that really stood out is one, automation QA makes everybody's lives easier, because we don't need to be dealing with certain retail apps crashing every single time you click something. And then two, it's quite interesting that you talked about how the history and the journey or the evolution actually of the QA role, where in South Africa it kind of started off as or probably is still predominantly sort of an afterthought instead of the collaborative effort from start to finish that Adham mentioned. And I actually just wanted to ask, have you seen something similar on your side, or has it always been a collaborative effort?
So this is something that actually evolved gradually. In the beginning, in a specific type of way how software is delivered, it's a waterfall approach. It's called that way because you have planned everything out for, let's say, a longer period of time, like a year. And then you know, okay, the first 3 months we will do this, then we will do that. And some 1 month near the end of the whole process, we will do some testing. So after 10 or 11 months of developing, all of a sudden somebody comes in and starts to test and to ask questions, and people figure out that they haven't thought of a lot of stuff, and then they have to refactor and change everything. So you can just imagine how many problems will come up when you let something accumulate a lot of work over 10 months of period.
Yeah,
so they noticed that now that this is not really the best approach that we can do, and people started to think, okay, is there a better way? Let's try to do it in chunks, not to deliver everything at once, but little by little. Then they started to add smaller time periods for the development process. But again, QA was somehow in the end of all of this, and even if the process is only 3 or 4 weeks. Again, QA will have some trouble to really communicate things. So with time, people understood, okay, it's not only the testing of the software that is important. I mean, the quality. It's also the quality of how we are working. And then it was, let's say, natural for the need to really try to check or ensure the quality of the whole process in software development.
So I think in addition to that, there isn't a viable alternative to the way we used to do software development. Like Harun was talking about the waterfall approach, it worked up to a certain point under very, very narrow circumstances. For example, if you're building some equipment that manages life, right, like a piece of medical equipment, you need it to work 100% of the time, and so there's some very narrow circumstances where waterfall approach works. But the nature of software that we're building these days is a lot more complex, right? We've had the internet now for 20, 30 years. The way we build software that works on a global internet scale is different. The software architecture is different. There's a lot more that businesses place on their own success from the software that they build. And so they've got, it's rare to find, a significant piece of software these days in the world that's not built by more than one team. And so even the size of the software is split up into parts where you have to then test each part, build each part, test each part, combine them all together, make sure it all works together. It's just so much more complex than 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was not building software like this. Like what is being built by people that are working in the industry right now. We never conceived it. And so the demand is quite natural. The need for this kind of collaboration and the techniques that we are using is, I don't see an alternative. And we've got to get better at it.
Yeah. My next question was around why was QA chosen among the first electives piloted, but I think you guys have covered it and given some really great rationale around that. But in addition to what's been mentioned, is there anything else that kind of went into selecting, the first few electives that we would launch at WeThinkCode?
Yeah, at WeThinkCode, we conduct very precise experiments of what is going to work in the industry, working closely with the industry partners. From a curriculum point of view, we recognize the need, as I explained. We then needed to make sure that there's something that is foundational that we've done prior to the elective that gives people a chance for success in that. And Arun and Hada will can talk more about it, about their observations of the students, even Lee, about their readiness for going into a quality assurance specialization. And so the hypothesis was that if you've had a good grounding in software development, you stand a better chance of transitioning to quality assurance as a career. The third part was also by design, is that from a curriculum development point of view, we want to engage with experts that are practitioners. And so we needed to identify experts, and it was fortuitous that we've had a relationship with Hamdia, the founder of system verification, and having had those conversations, we were fortunate that we had access to these experts who had built such content for their own consulting company that we could then bring over and modify. So the different aspects of making it a reality seemed to be coinciding at the same time, at the same place. There was a need, the foundational stuff was in there was access to quality experts with a curriculum. The need to set up electives then became a trivial choice. So it became obvious, like, why not do this? There were more questions, around a few other electives. Why should we do this? Why should we do this? But this one was so obvious for all the reasons that we spoke about.
And in terms of putting together that QA elective, and I know Adha, you kind of spoke to it a little bit when you were speaking about the difference between testing and QA, but what were the key elements in building this particular QA module to sort of set the foundation for students who are wanting to go down that path? What were the components that needed to be included to make sure that they had the fundamentals?
So in system verification, we have a program that is called TestStar. And in this program, we offer our consultants the possibility to learn more about test automation. So we use this as a foundation to set up this QA module for WeThinkCode. Because test automation in itself, as already mentioned a few times, it would be the process of writing some code to automate parts of the QA process. So the core of this would be to automate test cases so that they can be executed whenever needed to ensure that the new changes or the already existing software will not break. We decided that in the curriculum, the students will learn how to automate the different types of test cases. And to progress, they had to do a lot of work on their own. So they got the possibility to explore the testing itself and really feel what kind of challenges exist out there. So this gave them the possibility to understand some of the key ideas and principles to create successful test automation. So besides that, it was important for us also to include two more points that are really important in the everyday work of a quality assurance analyst. And these are teamwork and communication.
I can just add that the way that the TestStar program is structured and now the QA elective, so the idea or the structure, it comes from the very practical reasons, because the types of testing that we are teaching the students are the types of testing that our test automation engineers at system verification are implementing on their own assignments. Basically, when you pass this course, then you have some kind of basis for applying for junior positions in test automation, and that's really good. I must say that the material that we have had for TestStar is in much better shape now, thanks to Aslam. So I think now it's everything is in one place. It's much easier to navigate between different sections, and it's very suitable for self-study. So thank you, Aslam, for also contributing. It's been really fruitful collaboration, I would say.
And in terms of the uptake and the interest from the students, Lee, do you mind just sharing a bit of insight of from the cohort that were essentially the guinea pigs for electives, what were their thoughts about automation QA? Did people go in knowing, not knowing, and what was their sense around that?
Going into the elective, we had a sort of introduction session where students got introduced to Ada and Harun, where they basically gave them a breakdown of what QA is. And there were, I guess there were only a handful of students that sort of had an idea of what QA is. And so a lot more students became interested after the session, because we created a Slack channel and students just started adding their questions in there. What is QA? What do they do? What types of tools do they use? Like, do you need previous programming experience in order to do QA, or can you come from some sort of alternate career path and just join QA? And so there was a lot of questions like that where, they want to know, like, what, can this be an alternative learning path or career for them? They were just interested in that sense, because a lot of them haven't heard about it. So in order to get a better understanding, they obviously needed to ask these questions. And I think the answers that they got from Ada and Harun and some of the other people from system verification that provided input, they got a good sense of it. And so when it came to students choosing the elective, the QA elective kind of filled really quickly, surprisingly. And basically at the end of the elective period, all three of us, myself, Ada, Harun, we sat in all of the demos that they did, and we were quite surprised as to how intricate their tests were, because they were able, like, from the very beginning, they didn't know what QA was, and then they went through this QA elective, and at the end of it, they were creating GUI testing, where they create the test and it just automates how the website works, for example. So it opens the login screen, it logs in, it automatically logs in, it creates a entry, it removes the entry, all of those things, like all of that was part of the automated test. And so it was quite exciting for them. They were excited because just being able to do that and see it run was quite exciting for them, and it was exciting for me as well. And I felt happy because just being a part of that student's journey from the beginning to the end was quite fulfilling. Yeah,
I mean, that's quite a huge marker of success, and also the quality of what went into the curriculum itself, because as you mentioned, people going in and not knowing what QA is, and then at the end of it, demoing to that level is quite amazing. And in terms of the progress and the performance of the students during the elective, what were your impressions of the student performance?
It was a bit up and down. It was a rough start because again, they needed to learn a lot. They needed to learn new tools because with QA there's special tools that they use, and so they needed to take some time to get introduced and get used to the new tools that they're using in order to get the environment set up and all of those things. But once all of that was settled, they progressed quite positively in the sense that each iteration was structured so that it built on the previous one, and so they took the progress that they had from the previous iteration and just built on that, and so it got better towards the end.
You mentioned that yourself, Ada and Harun, sat in on the demos. What were some of your impressions on and some of the interesting things that came out of the QA elective? Maybe something that surprised you or something that you may have learned in the process. Ada?
Well, I must say that I'm very happy with the students' projects and the solutions they managed to deliver. And like in some way, every solution was so unique with their own, like they used the suggestions on how to structure the framework provided in the materials, but also they used their own ideas on how to do that. So, and it also included a lot of well-written code. Also, they encountered many different challenges with the technical setup of the project, some students dropping out from the groups, multitasking, so working on the different projects in the same time. But it's still impressive, like how most of them approached and resolved these different problems, and in the end managed to complete their projects. Also, they were like, it was so interesting to see how they were managed to find some shortcomings of their own solutions and make some plans for the future works and how they would want to improve it. But also they were thinking about what they want to learn, what are other tools and techniques they would want to learn in test automation. Like what was the most interesting thing, I would say that we realized how great this collaboration was, and that we want to do this again, I guess, and maybe even more better. But for sure, we will use feedback that we got from students to improve for the next iteration. So improve material, maybe provide some more material, and yeah, just try to do this maybe in a better way. But I'm really looking forward to it.
Arun, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that Adha really covered a lot with this. What I really liked is how much the students accomplished in a short period of time. So we gave them the freedom to explore and to work a lot on their own, and the solutions they came up with, they were really great. So I'm also, I mean, this is something that always astounds me, that regarding the mindset. So once they were forced to switch the mindsets of how to think about an application they have been using for some time, you see how much new things they have learned, not only for the application itself, but in the way they did some development and what they have to think about the next time when developing. And yeah, I really liked the discussion with the students about the solutions they provided and what they did, how they did it. I think it was really great to see how much effort has been put into this, and with how much interest.
Yeah, I think from what I hear, the WeThinkCode program is quite the pressure cooker. So I think they've had some experiences of being put under that pressure for a while, and obviously that has worked to their advantage in the end. Lee, any takeaways and thoughts from your side?
For me, I also sort of went through this QA elective with the students because it wasn't an option when I was part of the curriculum, part of the WeThinkCode code. So it was quite interesting for me as well. Just seeing what the students needed to do, and then just seeing what they were able to achieve at the end of it. And also, like Ada said, there were a few groups that where they had members missing, and so just the work that they were able to pull through in the end was amazing, because I think a lot of I do strongly believe that a lot of what they were able to achieve in the last few iterations of the QA elective is due to the strong foundation that the WeThinkCode curriculum provides them in their first and the beginning of their second year. So yeah.
Awesome. Was there anything interesting that came out of your observations of the students and their performance?
I think what really impressed me was the ability to adapt to something completely different. As you know, I think it was Harun earlier mentioned that it's a different mindset, and to change from one perspective of building to then, verifying that what was built is of the right quality is a big mind shift change. So one is change in mindset. The other one is we were quite deliberate. We chose a technology stack that they'd never used before. They had never done anything. Some of the tools we used in the curriculum built out was using the .NET stack and some JavaScript and things, and they had minimal or no exposure. If they had some exposure, it was on their own learnings. So it was a completely different stack for them. So they had to learn a new language, a whole set of new tools, change their mindset, work with people from a faraway land that had a weirder accent than them, and so there was the cultural aspects, there's so many uncertainties, and yet they were able to adapt, right? And it impressed me. I wasn't as surprised that they did, but I was impressed by how quickly they adapted to doing that. That within a few iterations, they were able to move forward with it. And students dropping out, let's not forget, these are young people. I go back to my days at university, and there's some things I wish my parents never knew I did. And so you do find that, some students, struggle with prioritizing, and so they slip up on one side and able to continue on some other side. And you see that typical behavior of a student anyway. But what is good is that I never had in my education was that the pedagogy itself and the support from industry practitioners and experts give you a grounding and a way to help you progress even in the most difficult of circumstances. My experiences and that of many people I know, it was sink or swim. It's very individualistic, whereas the workplace is not individualistic, it is very collaborative. And this is designed for that collaboration. Sometimes the simulation of teamwork is a bit too real. Sometimes I think, we see the students struggling with interpersonal challenges and meeting deadlines and collaborating, especially if it's cross-team collaboration. We see all of that happening. And so I think there's something good that's developing here, even in our own collaboration with system verification. That's just turning out a good thing. There's room to improve, of course. We all have set high standards for ourselves, so we've received some feedback, and we'll make some tweaks and we'll make some challenges. The QA space is vast. We touched not on everything. It was on some parts of it. There's a lot more to cover, and so we might well end up expanding it in that way. So, but overall, very, very satisfied with everything that we attempted. It exceeded my expectations.
Awesome. I mean, it sounds like the pilot went really well and exceeded expectations. So I guess the only question left is where to from here. In terms of the partnership between WeThinkCode and system verification, it seems like there's a really good synergy going. What's, the vision for this collaboration going forward?
Working with the leadership of system verification, I think firstly, we have to acknowledge there's a lot of synergy and common value system, and that's fundamental to a good, strong collaboration and partnership. It feels and genuinely has been executed as a common goal for the same reasons, with the same set of values. And we're seeing the benefit of that. In terms of going forward, more people from system verification can get involved along the way as mentors and help along the way will be brilliant. I'd love to find a way to increase the duration of that module so it becomes more than just an elective during a part of a semester to be maybe, a full semester, And the TESTAR curriculum that Ada mentioned, there's a lot more in that curriculum that we haven't yet explored and touched and presented. So I think there's a vast area that we need to uncover. And based on our workplace partners, we may make it a full semester, maybe a whole year. That's ambitious, but I think it's deserving because if we all fundamentally believe that quality assurance engineering is an equal to software development, is equal to other disciplines that makes software delivery, what the way we want it to be in the world, then we have to get behind it and give it the attention it deserves. So from my perspective of, heading up the curriculum side, for me, the partnership would be to grow it year on year until it's a full year program.
Awesome. Not that I have any say on the curriculum, but I'm with you there to extend it and expand it, just because if it means we don't have to deal with, tech that's always crashing on us, especially if, WeThinkCode's mission is to create African developers that are creating great tech. Part of that is also making sure that they know what great tech looks like and works like and how it functions. So I'm with you there. You have one vote for me. But that's it from my side. I don't know if the panel has any other thoughts or insights to contribute before we close. Cool. So from my side, thank you all for joining. And yeah, I hope we can continue to have these types of conversations.